Do that. Okay, and then let me get Chad unmuted. All right. Well, Chad, you'll have to unmute yourself, and I'll just make sure that you can.
I got it unmuted. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. I can see you. Awesome, man. So I'm going to spotlight you here in 1 second. So, well, before I bring you on, I just want to give you a quick introduction. So tonight our special guest speaker is Chad Crenshaw. And, you know, I had heard about Chad through Richard and Mary Amuedo probably, I'd say, almost a year ago, maybe a little less than that. And, you know, just heard about some of the things that he was doing. And then at Ambition this year, whenever they introduced the brand new Horizon Award and they called him out of the crowd, I'm like, whoa, man, I got to figure out what the heck is this guy doing? Because, you know, I mean, literally to go from, you know, just like hearing a little bit about you and then all of a sudden to see you up on the big stage and getting the award. And then, of course, at Power Trip, we went out to dinner and I heard you talking to John Caldwell a little bit, who's in our team. And just kind of listening in on your story, and I was just blown away about the sacrifices that you've made, the kind of your story with Japan, and I said this is a story that people need to hear. So, you know, we want to welcome tonight executive consultant. Where are you calling in from, Chad? Where are you at?
I'm actually in my office right now at work here in Fort Worth, Texas.
Okay, good. So you're working in Texas, and you have to add that into your story. But calling in from Texas, Horizon Award winner, and you've only been in Ambit. I mean, when I looked on Ambit Success, you're still at 2 years. So you may be two and a half years, something like that, right?
Yeah, right now I just rolled over about 2.5 years. So 2.5 years in the business right now. Pretty remarkable 2.5 years.
That's amazing. So what I'm going to have you do is just normally the way our layout is that I have you kind of just, you know, share your heart, tell us your story. If you feel like there's some points you want to train on, go for it. And then if, you know, I'll do a little bit of Q&A time as as we get towards the end, then I'll open it up for anybody who's got questions for you. So, you know, just fill us in a little bit about your journey with Ambit.
All right, perfect. Well, first, I'd like to say thank you very much for having me on. I always feel honored when anybody, you know, finds interest in, you know, in my story or anything that's going on. So hopefully I can add some value to, you know, to this call. But, you know, with that being said, my name's Chad Crenshaw. I'm 38 years old. I've worked for the same construction company since I was 15. I've been here 22 years. Have a business management degree, but came back in the construction business. Played college basketball, so I learned a lot of you know, hard work and teamwork and everything else. You know, growing up playing sports. But you know, I'm married, happily married. Been with my wife now 17 years. Been married 10. Have a little boy named Kale, and he is the reason we started this business 2.5 years ago. Our son had some medical conditions, and we didn't have any health insurance. And so in December of 2014, we had a little over $30,000 in our bank account. 5 months later, after paying for medical treatments, because you got to prepay if you don't have any health insurance so they can do something. I looked at my phone one night after my wife and my son had gone to bed, looked at my bank statement and just kind of had a blank look. We had $7.85 in our bank account. And, you know, it came to that point to where, you know, I don't know if anybody can relate, but I genuinely felt like, you know, a failure as a husband and a father, you know, and that was just the cards that life dealt. And, you know, I actually was working somewhere between 80 and 100 hours a week, and I'm on salary. So I was over at one of my buddy's houses, and I overheard him talking to somebody about their electricity bill. And when he got off, I said, "What are you doing hawking electricity?" Because he's also in construction. He works more inside the office. And he said, I save people money on their energy bill. And of course, that intrigued me. So when I got home, I sent him my bill, and he told me here in Texas, with Ambit, that bill would have been $80 less. and $80 was 10 times the amount of money I had in my bank account. And so I told him to, whatever he had to do to switch, just switch me. And 3 days later, he called me back and he said, hey, he said, I kind of messed up a little bit. And I said, I was upset because I didn't think he was going to save me $80. And he said he was very new at this business. He'd only been in it for a couple months, and he was supposed to share with me the opportunity that you could get paid. And at that point, I said, you get paid to save people money on their energy bill? And he said, yes, I get paid, hundreds of dollars at a time. And I said, sign me up. And he said, well, I didn't tell you how much it cost. And I didn't tell you, I didn't show you a video or anything else. And I said, I don't care. I understand the concept. I understand I can't go get a part-time job anywhere, because if you're already working 100 hours, there's nothing else. I knew that it was a network marketing business, which I had zero experience in. But I did understand that if you got paid to save people money on their energy bill, and he just saved me $80, that I could figure it out. And so that's how I got started in the business. I saw the business opportunity at a BP in Fort Worth with 2 guests 3 days later. And an executive at that meeting helped those gentlemen get signed up into my business. And, that's how we got in. That's why we got in. And, as they say, the rest is history. It's probably the best decision that I've ever made in my life. I just assume that, people don't retire from the construction business. They work forever in the construction business, and then they get old and then they die. I mean, that's the way it is. I mean, nobody, unless you're an executive in an office or something else, you typically don't make enough money to just retire. I mean, I get paid well at my job, and I love my boss, or I wouldn't still be here. But in the grand scheme of things, it only takes one sickness or one hiccup in your family, and everything that you think you've saved for is completely wiped out. I don't have a 401k. I don't have anything else. So I thought, at first we could use some money from Ambit to pay for our son's medical bills, and then we could use it to pay off some debt. And then, we just started looking at it like, wow, you can actually make some real money at this business. And so, now, if you fast forward, we can come back in the story, but you fast forward to now, my wife is almost 4 weeks pregnant, or excuse me, 4 months pregnant. And because of what we've done in 2.5 years, she has the option, which she of course is taking. She is going to now stay home with our son, and she has a master's degree in medical, and she is going to quit her job, and she's going to stay home, and she's going to be able to raise our son, our new son, which before she had to drop him off at daycare. And I had to hear the stories where she would drop him off. He would cry and scream, and they would pry our son away from her so she could go to work. And she made just enough money to where it justified her going to work and us paying $1,200 a month for daycare. And so I didn't have to live those moments, but I had to live hearing my wife tell me about them, and that absolutely crushed me. So this business has bought, it's really bought my family's life back. I mean, we are happier than we have ever been.
That's awesome. Now, let's transition from there into, kind of when you heard the announcement about the launch of Japan, and what thoughts went through your mind. And, had you had any contact in Japan? Was it something where you were like, man, I know a million people in Japan, I got to go there? And, or was it just like a blind faith kind of thing for you?
So when I heard the Japan announcement at Simulcast, I had personally sponsored 2 people in my senior coded organization. So I didn't fast track anything. It took me 2 months to promote to RC and 10 to SC. But when I heard that announcement, the first thing I thought of was those 2 gentlemen. And they had a lot of influence in Japan. One of them played professional sports there. The other one was a musician. So we literally drove home from Austin that night, and I called them, of course, on the way home. And then I started developing a website so I could funnel all the content just to make sure that the people we reached out to, I could make sure that they got the content, because I knew there was going to be a ton of information on the internet. So I literally did not sleep for 3 days. After my wife and son went to sleep, I drank a 5-hour energy drink, and I literally stayed up all night creating a website, which I had never done before. So I had 2 computers. One, I was watching YouTube, and the other one I would spin around, and I would build the website 20 minutes at a time, 20 minutes at a time. And I did that for 3 days. And over the next 3.5 months from those 2 contacts, I started working with a translator and learning Japanese. I started learning the culture. So if there was ever a point that I would have to go to Japan, I wouldn't embarrass myself. Being 6'3" and a white construction worker, I don't typically fit into a Japanese culture. So I started doing all those things. So I would literally go to work at 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning. Then at nighttime, I would come home, spend time with the family, and then starting around 9:30, I would start Japanese lessons from 9:30 to 11:30. We'd do a couple Skype calls. So I'd sleep probably 2.5 to 3.5 hours a night for about close to 3 months before we actually decided that we had built up enough contacts in Japan for me to warrant me actually going over there for 3 months. It started with, it might be a month or might be a week, then a month, and then it ended up being 3. So I was terrified when I had to ask my wife if I could leave her and my son, for 3 months. And as soon as she gave me, the green light to go, I went to work, and I asked my boss, is it all right if I go to Japan? He knew what I was working on. He let me build this. I actually have a conference room set up to do Ambit here at my office. And not only did my boss give me 3 months off, but he paid for my airfare. He told me it would be honored if he'd be able to pay for my airfare to help get me started in my journey. So that's basically the transition from simulcast until I decided to go to Japan.
Now, is your boss a consultant as well, or is he still in the fence?
Yeah, so my boss was actually my first 2 customers. He was my first customer here on the building here and his house. And after Ambition was over, I got my award. He walked in one day. It was probably 4 o'clock in the morning, and he said, "Come in the conference room and explain to me what you're doing." And he signed up, and he is currently he's in my executive business, and he is half or 3/4 of the way to senior consultant right now.
Wow. What's amazing is that, you saw such potential in Japan, and you put a major financial, you put a lot of investment into it, because it's not cheap to build a website. You have to subscribe and get your domain name and all that stuff. And then also to get a translator, I'm sure that was some out-of-pocket expense and then also, he covered your airfare, but it cost you money to leave to go to Japan. So obviously you saw, some major potential over there. There's a part of your story that I love, that it was your commitment to your translator. So let's talk about how all that unfolded.
So as I started working with my translator, I didn't tell her for about a month what I was actually doing. She just knew that I was a construction worker. She thought I was going to go to Japan to make a business, to build a building. And then I started getting emails in English that said, "We need to speak to you. We're very, very interested in this business, but we only speak Japanese." So I told her one night, I'll go ahead and pay our fee for the evening, which was $150 every night, and I did it twice a week. I paid her to go to our site, look at everything. And when she called me back, she said, "Oh, network marketing, I love it." And I said, "Well, I'll make you a deal, because I can't afford to continue paying you. I still have all my other bills." I said, "If I'm taking a leap of faith," I said, "I truly believe that we're gonna go to Japan, and we have the biggest opportunity that these individuals are ever going to be able to take part of." And anyways, the offer that I made her was I would sign her up to be the first Japanese consultant if she wouldn't charge me anymore, and then we would build the entire business underneath her. So I only have one more consultant than she does, and of course that's her. And I feel honored to be able to make a deal with her like that, because I couldn't have without her, I couldn't have a Japanese business. She was with me every step of the way, every meeting, 7 to 9 presentations a day in coffee shops all over Japan. She actually flew here. She was at Ambition this year. I acknowledged her when I got my award, but she really is like family now. Someone who goes through that, and of course she didn't have any idea really what the potential was. I mean, she saw it. She didn't see what I saw. She didn't understand what I saw, and I don't think she understands still to this day, what the impact could be in 5 or 7, 10 years from now. Just that little burst of effort, what that could be. But we have a very special relationship.
So what I love about this whole story is that you make a commitment to this person, okay, and now, like you said, it's like family. But when I asked you, now the timeline is you're a senior consultant, you go to Japan and you build your entire senior code in Japan, which makes you an executive consultant in pretty short order, considering the time you've been in the business. But then when I asked you, I said, now are you going to build your executive team in Japan? And your answer is
no. And the
no.
reason is, one, I don't feel right asking Hikaru to work with anybody who is not going to be coded to her in some way, shape, or form. So she would do it in a heartbeat to help me out. But I would feel guilty asking her, knowing that she would take that on just for me, knowing that she would have zero financial gain in that. So unless I found a new translator or something to work with, I won't be able to build a business in Japan. And Richard and Mary are the exact same way. Richard and Mary are my executive consultants. So even though they're national consultants at this point, they are coded out, or I'm coded out to them. But they are like my family at this point. They are my mentors, they're my friends, and they're my family. And they would work with every single person that ever came into my business while they're over there. You know, they wouldn't care. They wouldn't have a problem with the world. And for me, it's not fair. It's not fair to ask Richard and Mary. It's not fair to ask Hikaru to invest their time when they know they will not get any financial gain at any point. I just don't feel right doing that. So I'm not going to.
So then let's circle back around though, because you also made a commitment to your boss, and, with in relationship to your current job. So I mean, let's talk about kind of how things played out with your boss and what your commitment is to him.
So when you're with somebody as long as I have, I mean, I've been at this company for 22 years, and so it's basically the only place I've ever worked in my entire life. My boss gave me 3 months off to go change my life, potentially. And that happened. I'm very blessed that happened. But he's probably going to keep the doors open here at our company for about 3 more years. 3 more years is, when he's going to have this building paid for. And anyways, that's a long story. But I assured him that regardless of how successful everything went, that I would stay here with him because he gave me that opportunity and he's given me a life for 22 years. I told him that I will be here with him because I'm the person directly below him. I run the field. I run all the jobs. And, it's not in my DNA to have someone give me a career, give me the opportunity to change my life. It happens. And then say, well, I can make more money with Ambit. I got to quit. I can't be here. That's not in my DNA. That's not in my makeup. So, that's why I got here at 4:00 this morning. And that's why I'm sitting in this office speaking to y'all.
And you know what it is? It's, never sacrifice integrity for growth. And what I see in you is integrity. And so you have a commitment, you're a man of your word, and God's blessing you because of that. Because I look at now with your boss, it's like you have your whole Japanese business. It's rocking and rolling. It's probably growing as we speak. Here, there's probably activity going on in Japan still, and your income's growing, and it doesn't matter what coding it is or how it falls, you will make $1 million in Japan because of what you started. And then here you come back to the States, and your boss now joins your executive team, and I'm sure he's got influence and connections and things like that. But due to your integrity that you didn't sacrifice, now you're going to reap the reward. That's just an amazing, I mean, I don't think a lot of people realize what it takes, even what you've done. Now, let's talk a little bit about in Japan, the sacrifice you made to be there. I mean, I remember seeing the picture of you in the apartment where you had one arm on one wall and one arm on the other. So let's talk about the experience and the sacrifice that you went through while you were there.
So I didn't really understand how much of a financial expense, burden, whatever you want to call it. The apartment that I stayed in for 3 months, it cost $600, 600 US dollars, which I thought was pretty cheap. But the apartment was 72 square feet, 72 square feet. So it was 6 by 12, which included the bed, the bathtub, the shower, the toilet, everything else. And really not a bathtub. It was like a puddle that I couldn't get in. But it was $600 a month for 72 feet. I had to duck to go into the room. It was so narrow that I couldn't open up my suitcase. So I had to set my suitcase on the bed, take everything out of it, put it back down on the floor, stack all the clothes on top of it, and then step over it. The train pass that it cost every 21 days cost about $600 every 21 days to have a Japanese rail pass so you could get all over the country. People who live there can't get one. It's only for tourists. Well, I mean, you extrapolate that out, how many times I had to buy one of those rail passes to travel all over the country. That adds up. I didn't realize nobody had a home or anything big enough to do a BP in. So we did every meeting at a coffee shop. Well, they don't just let you sit there at a coffee shop and take up space unless you're buying something. So every meeting, it would cost me $5, $6, $7. And after a few weeks, I called my wife and I said, listen, I think this is going to be really big, but I've been here a few weeks. Of course, we didn't sign anybody up. I got there 3 weeks early and I'd spent thousands and thousands of dollars already. And I said, you're just going to have to believe me. Like this is going to work. So the financial loss that I was looking at, if it didn't work out, was just going to be massive towards my family.
And, so in relation though, you work 20 years in construction and one day you wake up and have $8 in the bank account. That's a major sacrifice too. So, I mean, the comparison between 3 months of major sacrifice, and then you see your life on the other side and you're not even, I mean, I can just say, because I'm an executive consultant in this business and you are too, we're not even where we're going to be in this business. I mean, the future is so much bigger and so much brighter down the road. And so, a lot of times people look at it and they'll say, well, it's easy because, that guy's an executive and, things come natural to him. And man, your story is just the opposite of that. It's like you saw something and you grabbed the bull by the horns. You had no experience in network marketing. I mean, how did you bridge that gap from going from the construction world over to now you're in a direct selling world and you're in a foreign country where you don't even speak the language? I mean, it had to be like you have to have some serious mental toughness,
It was literally, it was probably one of the hardest things that I've ever done. A lot of people think that this business is easy or you can sign somebody up and get lucky. And maybe that's 1 in 10 million times that ever happened. But you really have to go through some things in order to be successful. I mean, in my senior business at a point, 22 people in a row told me no to the business after they saw the presentation, after I did all the right things and followed the system. 22 people in a row told me no. So if you don't develop a mental toughness between 1 and 22, then I never get to the point to where I hear the announcement about Japan. I never get to go to Japan. I was actually in my room one night, and like I said, I got there 3 weeks before we actually launched in Japan, and we hadn't signed. Of course, we couldn't sign anybody up yet. And I remember, 19-hour days, and I was just sitting in that room. And of course, I felt like it was me against the world. Richard and Mary and Tim and Sonia, and everybody was down in Osaka, and I'm 2.5 hours away on a bullet train, in this little room. And I kind of just had a breakdown. I put my head in my hands. I cried for probably 2 or 3 minutes, which is, as a construction worker, not easy to admit. And then I pulled it back together because, it literally was the toughest thing that I've done. I'm used to physical labor. I'm used to, all kinds of things, but it was just being away from the family, and it was everything else. And I got a picture of my wife and son out. I looked at it, and I pulled myself together, and I took a shower, and then, never really looked back after that.
Yeah, so your why is, super strong, or you never would have made it through. You had.
That's absolutely correct. If my why was just to go out and buy a fancy car or anything else, I would have never gone.
Yeah.
And if I was going through that, I would have come home. That's it. If you hear it all the time, your why's got to make you cry. Well, that's a prime example, that you just get broke down to a point. But in the end, it's all worth it. It doesn't matter how much crap that you have to go through and suffer through. You just have to know what the end of the road is, what you envision the end of the road being, and you just can't ever lose sight of why you're doing it.
Yeah, it's that consistent, persistent effort, over time. And, so you're in this room, in this, little cell basically over in Japan. How do you spend your time? What kind of, are you watching training videos? Or what are you doing over there to stay just focused, laser focused?
So, of course, I get in there, and I actually watched, I watched more training videos while I was there back about here in America. I watched hours and hours of YouTube videos that everybody had made and put together. And it's remarkable when you actually have time for yourself and you're just alone, and you're supposed to be over there, and everybody's looking at you like the successful professional that's going to teach them. Like I watched videos over and over and over again all night. And plus my mattress, I don't know if you can see this, my mattress was this thick, and I had to sleep on my sides. So both of my hips were bruised, so I didn't sleep well. And so I slept for maybe 2 or 3 hours, and the rest of the time I was out all day. And then when I was in that room, I was laser focused on, watching videos, learning as much as I could possibly learn. And then once we actually launched, I was in my power zone, and I was figuring out who's moving, who's going, making sure we're working with them, getting those people promoted to regional consultant, making sure people are getting their customers. And then we bought while I was at Richard and Mary's apartment in Osaka, we bought the domain Ambit DNA Japan. And so we actually created a website, and I was staying there, and I hooked up into one of into the little TV that was there so I could have a second monitor, because I couldn't understand what was on TV, and went through there and loaded tons of training content. And we built a website that everybody now uses over there, that's in English, Japanese, Chinese, and Tagalog, for everybody to plug into. They can download the forms, they can do everything. It was all on, full on. We got to make the most of these 3 months. I didn't come over here I used to tell everybody, I didn't come over here for a vacation. I don't care if I sightsee. The only thing I want to do is build a business.
That's focus. Talk about just being all in, Did you get to enjoy some octopus or any crazy cuisine?
I think I had everything. And I am one of the world's pickiest eaters. So I even tried lettuce while I was there. I hate lettuce. I hate onions. I hate most everything that's healthy for you. But I lost 17 pounds while I was there just from eating healthy food and walking. And I actually got so sick from something there that I had to get hooked up to a bunch of IVs in an emergency room for 2 days. And that was part of the story that that most people have no idea. Like, you really went through all kinds of stuff to come out with what we have now.
Now, let's talk a little bit about the Japanese culture, because there's people on our team that have some Japanese consultants, and the culture is totally different over there. We were talking a little bit about how sometimes people will actually choose who they want to be under as their sponsor, and there's a lot of, like, here where I can share information from one team to another team, but things aren't quite as easy over there with people, right?
No, it's a much different culture over there. You know, a lot of people still have flip phones over there. I mean, you would think that it's a very high tech society, and the younger generation is, but some of the older people don't even have a phone. So trying to build that kind of business was tough. But at the beginning, at the original launch, where I met Chris and Jerry for the first time, when they made the announcement of Ambit coming to Japan, there was about 650, 750 people there, and the room only held, you know, they expected to have 300 people there. And so they actually had to do 2 BPs. And then after that, we couldn't sign people up for, another couple of weeks. And then it just looked like a ghost town, and we were trying to figure out what happened. Well, people would bring guests to come here, the BP, and then somebody else would recognize them, maybe from a different network marketing business. Who knows where they all came from? And then within those few weeks between the time that they saw you and the time you could sign up for the business, they would try and convince them to come over to their team, join their team. And so it's a way different than here. I mean, like, I'm on this team call tonight. I don't know that anybody over there is doing anybody else's, team call. I mean, they're laser focused on their team. I don't know that anybody feels comfortable sending a potential consultant to a meeting to someone else's, to a cross line, what we would call a cross line. I don't think anybody would ever do that. Nobody would ever do that on my team.
So basically, unless you're hands-on, it's not that easy to build a big team over there.
No, it's incredibly tough, but once you find some really good leaders to run, they take it over pretty quick. I mean, my team is very self-sufficient. I mean, they run their own Zoom trainings. They don't really ask for much help at the beginning. I mean, they ask you every single detail. 2.5, I would do a business presentation for one person at a coffee shop. They would watch 12 minutes worth of videos and then ask me 2.5 hours worth of questions before they would sign up. Wow. And they want to know everything. You have to print them off the Gaio Showman. You print off the contracts, and they read every single word, every single line, all the way through. And then all they want you to do is teach them the system, because those people, they follow a system way different than you think about how a system's followed here in America. You tell somebody follow a system every time you get on this call, right? Follow the system, follow the system. You tell them to follow the system. They ask you, what's the system? You teach them. I taught 526 over and over and over and over again. Don't ask me how to become a senior. All we're going to teach you is 526. We're going to teach everybody how to become an RC. And they follow the system to a T, and they just follow it and follow it and follow it. And then they teach it, and then they just duplicate the Zoom calls. And, it's the business is exploding over there.
So you have a website that's up, and somebody comes across your website and basically changes your world over in Japan. Let's talk a little bit about how that all kind of developed. You made somebody who's already in sort of the network marketing world, and you plugged them into the system. I love that story about how you were just kind of fly on the wall in the conversation with Richard and Mary and all that. So let's talk about how that kind of developed for you.
Yeah. So this gentleman, he was big in another network marketing company. So I don't post any pictures, and I don't ever say his name, for his, for what he wants. But he reached out to me. We started talking back and forth, and I sent his name and credentials and everything that he said he was over to Richard and Mary. And they called me back and they said, we really looked into him. Everything really checks out. And so I knew that it was going to be a great call. And it was myself, Hikaru, who's my translator, this gentleman, and Richard and Mary. And it's one thing when you get on these calls and people are in t-shirts and everything else. Then it's another thing when we all get on the call and Richard and Mary look like they're doing a presentation down here in Dallas, or speaking at simulcast. They looked really professional, very nice. And so once everybody introduced themselves, I'm a senior consultant at that point. So I got out of the way. I hit mute like we talked. And when the first time he asked a question to Richard and Mary, I hit mute and listened for about an hour and a half. I didn't say anything. And I took notes and I listened, and I was blown away by that first encounter. And then I looked up the company that he was a part of and started doing some own research, and didn't know really until the first day we were allowed to sign somebody up in Japan. We put in my translator, and then I knew at that point, as soon as he was the next person to go in the business, I knew that we had something very, very special.
I mean, that's just another testament to kind of your integrity. You followed through with the steps, you made major sacrifices, and you were there, you were present. And when opportunity knocked, you plugged people into the system. It's like it says in the Bible in Galatians 6:9, be not weary in well doing, and because in due time you will reap if you don't faint. And that's kind of where you were. You stayed the course, and you reaped a major harvest. Now let's talk about your stats if you want to. I mean, now you're in Japan. You have a few regional consultants, some seniors. I think you said somebody even push an EC if that hasn't already happened yet. So what's that looking like?
Yeah, I mean, it truly is remarkable, and I only say the numbers because I truly am blown away by what has happened, and I am very humble. But just to say we became an RC machine, that's all we taught. We currently have 60 plus RCs just in Japan. We have 13 SCs, and a stay-at-home mom of 2 kids isn't that far away from EC right now. And all they did, and all we ever taught anybody, was how to become a regional consultant. And then once somebody became a regional consultant, they said, all right, since you wouldn't tell us before, now what's the secret to getting to a senior consultant? I would just tell all of them. I'd say, go sign up 3 people tomorrow, bring them back here, and they would do it. And then I'd say, all right, we're going to teach all 3 of these people how to become a regional consultant. And then once they did that, like I explained the numbers, it takes 18 to promote to senior and everything else. And so they said, well, that's all we ever have to teach is how to become a regional consultant. And I said, that's all you have to teach over and over and over again. I actually think that the regional consultant promotion is the most vital promotion in this business. Other people would disagree. They would say it's a senior or an executive. But I truly believe if people get to a regional consultant, then they understand, one, that it actually works, the business works. Then they're going to start taking advantage of the infinite levels, so then they can actually create a deep residual income if they're teaching other people how to duplicate the business. And all they have to do is teach people how to do exactly what they just did. And if you can do that over and over and over again for a long period of time, you can reap the rewards of what this business has to offer.
Yeah, and I think also, for people listening, is that when you do it that way, when you focus on RC, it prepares you on how to be a leader. I think sometimes people go senior by, and it's nothing wrong with it, but some people go SC by recruiting all 18. But when you learn how to build leadership, and that's the same thing we did. I mean, we fast tracked senior because we built, 3 or 4 good regionals in our senior code very quickly. That also helps you transition for that EC promotion because you're already in the mode of building leadership. So I think that's something that people should be. I mean, that's obviously you're doing it over there, but that's a major focus that my wife and I have always done is focused on RC promotions, and we have a lot of RCs because of that. That eventually lead to seniors if everybody keeps following the system. So yeah, that'll preach, as they say. Now, did you have any one-on-one time with Chris Chambliss in Japan?
I did. I got to have some one-on-one time with Chris and Jerry. I was absolutely blown away that they asked me for my opinion on anything.
Yeah.
But, meeting them, I remember shaking their hands at the Tokyo meeting, and I went up after most people had walked away. And I remember Chris looked at me and he said, "You don't look like you're from here." And he laughed and I laughed, and I said, "No, sir." I said, "My name's Chad Crenshaw. I'm from Texas, and I came here to change my life." And he said, I hope that works out for you." And I shook his hand, and I actually have both of those pictures with me with Chris and me with Jerry and my translator with the both of them. And those pictures mean a lot. And the time that we got to spend together, was stuff that people can only dream of. I can't imagine, just how blessed that I actually was to be able, because a lot of people got to go over there and, it didn't work out. I think, for whatever reason, you look back at all the dots that it took to get me to where I'm at now. And if you think that God didn't play a role in, setting this whole thing up for me, just trying to figure out, I was trying to figure out why me at this point, and that's irrelevant. Now I actually don't think about the finances too much. I genuinely know at this point that we do have the greatest gift that anybody is going to offer most people that you ever encounter. I think that Ambit, when I used to tell people, my name's Chad Crenshaw, I'm here from the United States, and I'm one of 15 consultants out of 450,000 that are here right now. And I'm about to show you an opportunity that I think will be the greatest opportunity that ever presents itself to you. And so I urge you to watch it with an open mind. Like, that's what I said to everybody over and over and over again. And here I tell people, listen, I'd like to share an opportunity with you. It may or may not be for you, but I feel like I'm doing you and your family a disservice if I don't at least share it. So, and I honestly believe that. So it's easy to say.
Yeah, and I love how you said that, you started to try to figure things out, but then, you just can't. And I had a friend of mine that he said it to me today, when things are all clicking and all the pieces are coming together, he says, "Mark, you're in miracle country right now. Don't worry about it. Things are falling,
Yeah.
And so, that's kind of how you were. It's like, you can sit back and say, but like we were just talking tonight at a group meeting, and we were, really going over consistent, persistent effort. And, you stayed laser focused on your goal. You knew exactly where you wanted to go. You were in touch with your why. And, it was that consistent, persistent effort. People could say, well, somebody stumbled on him and blah, blah. No, you were consistent, persistent. You built the website, you were in Japan, you had the translator, you did everything it took to be in the right place at the right time. And that's why you are where you are. That's why you had the success that you have. Now, when you got to hang out with Chris and Jerry, I always ask everybody who's on my Zoom call who knows Chris and Jerry to talk a little bit about the character of the founders of this company. You've been close to them. Let's talk about a little bit about their personal character.
If my leap of faith was based on three people, it was based on my own efforts that were going to be put into this, and it was based on everything that Chris and Jerry, I had heard them say at Ambition and Simulcast, and everything I said. Every time I heard them speak, I just said, those are two men that I can follow. And then you always hear that you never want to meet your hero, because you don't really, you never want to find out that that's not who they are. Well, they genuinely care about every single consultant that they come in path with, and they love hearing the stories. I just got back off a 5-star trip and got to sit next to Jerry after a round of golf, and then I sat right next to him again, him and Carolyn, at the dinner on the last night, and they talk about the littlest things, about your dog and your kids and this, that, and the other. And I mean, the time over there with Chris, I mean, he just tells history stories, and they just talk. They're just normal people, but they're normal people that have just a gigantic heart. I mean, they had plenty of money. They could have turned this into another TXU and just, started selling energy and having an energy company, but they genuinely want people to change their lives. And then they really appreciate people saying thank you, because I tell them, every time I see them, I tell them thank you both from the bottom of my heart. This has saved my life. There's no question. So they are exactly what they look like on stage. And you tear all the suit and you tear all that back, and they're just normal people that genuinely have the biggest heart of two people that I've ever met in my life.
Yeah, you hear that from everybody. I mean, anybody who's got to meet them personally. I've been in this business for, since 2012, and had many opportunities to sit with them. Never been on a 5-star trip. So, that's a one-on-one time, but I've had a lot of one-on-one time, and everybody I talk to has the same exact sentiment. I mean, these guys are the real deal, and that's why I trust them. And sometimes we look at the picture, especially, with what we're dealing with in the Northeast, and there's times where it looks tough, and I always have to go back and say, Jerry's a businessman first, and the decisions he makes is about the well-being and the future of our company, and I trust them, and I'm sure, after you being around these guys, you feel the same way, I mean, there's a high level of trust. So, what's interesting is that I never really got to know you. I mean, obviously you only been in AMBA for a couple of years, and you spent most of your time in Japan last year, and you're in Texas, and I was in Pennsylvania. But I got to meet you because of an event, and so I always talk about the big events and why people should be at these events. But Power Trip to me is one of those events that it's different than any other thing that I've ever been to. And I've been to a lot of AMBIT events and all the big ones. But one thing I like about Power Trip, and I tell people, I learn more in the hallways and the elevators and the lobbies of hotels and out to dinner than I do at the training, most of the time. And this whole, relationship and how we got to know you was because of that. And so, I always encourage people to get to these events if you haven't been to a big event, because this is who you meet. This is the type of person that, I'll be real with you, Chad, going into this Power Trip. I mean, we just moved to Florida back in December, and I'm working in a territory that's 1,000 miles away from a deregulated market. And, had made 2 trips back to Pennsylvania. I didn't even want to go. I'm like, man, I don't even want to go to Power Trip. It's just because, you got all the world going on, but then you get there and you remember why you're there, and so this meeting with you is great. Now, talk to us about the big event. If somebody's brand new on here tonight and they're thinking about ambition, why should they go?
So I had only been in the business for a couple months. Whenever my sponsor and my senior and Richard and Mary all asked me to go to Ambition, and they told me what it was, and it sounded to me like a big pep rally. I was completely annoyed. I didn't really have a couple hundred, it's in my backyard. So it was like $150. And I was working 80 to 100 hours a week and really hadn't had any success to speak of, and still didn't even know what I was doing. So I went kicking and screaming after I got off work, and then on Saturday, which was the big day. And thank God I went, because that's when I heard Chris and Jerry speak. I didn't understand all the awards. I still didn't really understand the business at all. But when I heard Chris and Jerry speak, I sat up in my seat, I leaned forward, and I hung on basically every word that they said. And I thought, you know what, if that's who's leading this charge, I'm in. And I kind of got a little bit more committed after that. And I haven't missed an event since because I know you're going to get to see them. And I did. Richard and Mary introduced me to several leaders. I got to see several leaders get up there and speak. I got to listen to Ray speak for the first time, and now Ray is, a dear friend to me. But I mean, it's so important to go to the event. Like you just said, if we both would not have attended this event, I would have never met you. I had seen a bunch of Dr. Ryan's videos, had no idea, if I'd ever meet him in person, and I met him at this event. So it truly is a remarkable thing. And my list is super long of people who I can't wait to see this year at Ambition. So if you're in and you've only been in for a month or 2 months or 6 months or whatever, and you hadn't been to an Ambition and you think it's ridiculous, I get it. Like, I get it. I got drugged there kicking and screaming. And it was the best thing that if my upline, if you want to call them, if my upline would have let up on me attending to the event, I probably wouldn't be on this call today. That first event, the first Ambition I went to, really changed everything for me, just hearing them speak. So, I mean, it's super important. So if you're not registered, I know a lot of people only register because they get bonuses, and that's fine. But you're missing out on so much more on the value of the people in the organization if you don't attend the event.
I love it. So let me ask you what your life's like now when you go to work compared to when you had $8 in the bank.
When I had $8 in the bank, I literally would get in fist fights on the job.
Yeah.
I've been in many fist fights on the job. People have gone through sheetrock. Everything was super stressful. It is very, very hard at this point to stress me out. It's the exact same problems that would drive me crazy and I would take home with me and everything else. But the majority of my day, I'm doing my job as good as I've ever done it. But I spend most of the day thinking about Ambit. I mean, I think about how happy my wife is at the house. Like, I have no stress here at work anymore. I mean, you'll get you have the typical problem, which you always have. You're going to have problems at work. But none of it bothers me. None of it stresses me out. It's all going to be here tomorrow. Or it won't be. It'll solve itself. I can literally check out mentally sometimes and just think about my Ambit business and try and do calls and do everything driving around. And I know that it's going to come to an end one day. And life's really not as short. Life's really not as long as people think it is. And, I'm 38 years old. I don't have any idea how long I'm going to live. But I've spent a lot of time stressed out on a job that I thought I was going to work at forever. So now that I have options at this point, I'm going to take full advantage of the rest of my life. And it starts here at work, and I am under almost zero stress anymore.
Well, if you figure you work your whole life trying to figure out how you're going to retire, you've already got the retirement figured out. So now work is just, it's stress-free, and I feel the same way. Anything else I do is just fill in time, and because I've already got the end figured out, and there's so much a weight lifted off of you, and I can see it. I mean, I didn't know you before, but just seeing who you are in this business, it's it's great to see that easy living kind of stress-free lifestyle. So that's awesome.
Well, and you and I. Living that stress-free life, I honestly believe I owe as many people as I can possibly talk to. I feel like I owe them every bit that I can give them, so that as many people as possible can feel the exact same way. I feel like I owe that to everybody, because so many people have done so much for me to get me here, that I feel like the least I can do is help as many people as possible. Whether they're associated with me in my business or not, it is completely irrelevant. This is truly about helping other people experience what I'm experiencing right now.
Yeah, and you're not the last Chad Crenshaw that's going to join Ambit. I mean, there's people out there that are in the same boat that you were in 2 years ago, that are going to walk across the stage and collect an award 2 years from now, and they can be on our team if we would just go out and share it with them. and I think that's is the key. And man, it's been so inspirational. I want to see if anybody's got any questions real quick, and I don't want to keep you on here all night, but any questions out there for Chad? Let's go to Rob Malone. So go ahead, Rob.
Hey, Chad, first of all, thanks for being on tonight. Appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Thank you for having me.
Well, we have a special guest, and we have the guy hosting, and I know that there are more than 23 people in Marc Alfano's business, and I see 23 on here. The question I have for you is, does it frustrate you? I know that the no's are frustrating, and you said about the string of the 22, but the people actually working, how do you deal with what we're seeing right now, which is, Marc has a huge team, in his marketing, regional, senior, and executive, and he's got 23 people on Zoom right now. Is that normal for everybody's business across the board? Could you speak to that and the frustration, or how you overcome that type of frustration?
So I can't speak across the board. I can speak, probably so. People get in and out of this business, in my business, just like anybody else's. I'm actually missing our team call tonight to be on this team call. So maybe other people are popping on and off, but y'all know what your team call looks like sometimes. And if you look at the numbers on your 7-level chart, it just takes a few people to duplicate all the way through, and you may have thousands of consultants in your business that may come and they may go, and they bring customers and they'll leave you customers and everything else. And it used to bother me. It used to bother me a lot at the beginning. At this point, I can't focus on all the people that aren't here. I focus on the 23 people that are actually on this call, that are wanting to do something for themselves, that are trying to build something for themselves, that are up at, 10:30 Eastern time now, because it's 9:30 here. If you look at simulcast, and that Dallas is the biggest area, and there was, 3 or 4 or 5, however many thousands of people, and the place was half full. If you think of all the people that didn't show up, it would drive you crazy. And what you focus on is the people that actually show up, the people that are actually there. You give them the best value possible, and you just teach them to just keep on going through. And then you're going to end up with, I'm not sure what the numbers are on the 7 levels, but if there's 1,300 people in my organization, it doesn't matter if the guy who brought me in the business has, too many people actually working on the business. You're eventually, you stick with it, you maintain, you focus on the people who want to build the business and who show up time and time again, and to go to the events and to get on these calls. Just focus on the positive and not on the negative. That's the real answer I want to give you. I wish I could say my business was different, but it's not.
Yeah, and Chad, if you think about it, I've been going to Power Trip for 6 years, and it's the same size room every year. And Brian McClure has one of the biggest organizations in all of Ambit. There's no reason why we couldn't fill out the American Airlines Center for Power Trip. But like you said, it's just, I like Jim Rowan says, I didn't sign up for that class. So let's go here to Jonathan.
Yeah.
I want to bring up Jonathan. Where are you at there, buddy? I got to find you. There he is. Okay. All right, hold on a second. Go ahead, John. You're breaking up. Hang on. I know he's calling in from Japan, so.
He's calling from Japan?
Yeah.
Sounds like he's at a disco in Japan.
Yeah. You're. Why don't you text it over here real quick, and I'll ask it for you. Nah, still the same. Here he goes. Hang on a second. I love it. It's like a Godzilla movie. Nah, I can't hear you. Yeah, type it in. I'll read it to you. All right, guys. While he's typing in his question, I'll take a couple more questions. So, all right, let's see, Corey and Kelly. So let me unmute you there. Go ahead.
Hi, Chad. Thanks so much for sharing your experience. It's really inspirational. And I hear about your days that were in Japan. I'm just curious, what would a typical day in the U.S. building your business look like?
Currently,
Mm-hmm.
so currently, I still get up at 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning to come to work.
Mm-hmm.
And so typically when I'm driving, I'm in charge of a bunch of different job sites. And so I have a lot of time in my vehicle. So I typically, I try and make a couple invitations a day, whether or not it is over the phone, inviting at least one person that I know off of my list every single day. That gets me 365 invites off of my list a year. Okay. That is my one promise to myself that I will do. I will always invite one person a day. And then as I'm out during the day, I try and talk to somebody throughout the day. So I try and always speak to two people about the business every day. And then of course if I'm having lunch, I can email things out to my team about trainings, about different things. When I listen to a call, when I learn some inside information, or not inside information, but when I learn information that I know they're not going to get, I try and share that with them. I call consultants. I don't want to call and bother anybody, but I call consultants, ask them how their business is if I'm doing a three-way phone call. But I can still do all that as I'm still having my normal day going through. Tomorrow I have 3 appointments that are set up, and since I'm very fortunate to be able to set up my day on how I'm going to travel from job to job. And so I basically, at this point, and I hope my boss never sees this, I try and fit, if I'm going to do a presentation at a Starbucks or something else, I'll set my day up to where I catch that in my route. So it wouldn't matter if I was stuck in traffic for 2 hours or at a Starbucks doing a presentation for 2 hours, that I can, make it all work, make it all flow. So I can actually do more presentations now than I could before I ever went to Japan. I have the same amount of time, but I moved Ambit up as a priority in my life. So I just stay focused on it. And there has come about once a week since I've been back, since basically since January 31st, when I was pumping really, really hard to get on this 5-star trip. There comes a point about once a week that drives me crazy that I'm still working, because I know that if I put all of that effort into Ambit, that I could move mountains. But I can't. And so like I just shared a while ago, I just focus on what I can get done. And, some people say call 2, 5, 10 people a day. It's not, I personally don't think that that's a realistic goal. You have to set something that you can hit. And I only guarantee myself that I'm going to talk to one person a day. And it's so easy to do that while you're driving. And you talk to 365 people a year. Like, that's a lot of people you're asking to take a look in 1 year. So if I call one and then I just see one out there during the day floating around somewhere, even if they say no, they're not interested, I did something with my business to try and progress it and move it forward.
Yeah, that's great. So it's once again, you just say persistent. So let's go to the next question. I think Cheryl Williams. So I'm going to put Cheryl up here. Go ahead.
Hey, Chad. Thanks for coming on. It was so nice to meet you at Power Trip. And
yes, ma'am. It was a pleasure.
Yeah, we're excited you're coming to Ohio. Are you still gonna come?
I am. My wife is supposed to book our plane tickets. My wife is about to book our plane tickets next week, and I have your phone number, so
Cool.
I'll shoot you a text, because I'd love to come by a BP in Ohio, because she has a lot of family members there. So I'll try and bring some guests with me.
Yeah, great. That'll be wonderful. We'll work it out. And I just have more and more respect for you, just hearing your story and everything. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you very much for that.
All right. So, okay, let's see. Here we go. So, Jonathan. Okay, I'm going to read his question here. He said, oh, boy, it's a big one. This one we couldn't hear. It says, Chad, I'm in Japan stationed here in West Tokyo with the Air Force. I spent the vast majority of my time so far building relationships. Now that I have some solid relationships formed, I have started sharing the plan. The vast majority of people I share with speak broken English. They are receptive to the video information, but when it comes to asking for a decision, they are very wishy-washy, if that makes sense. With the cultural difference, would you say it's essential to have a translator, someone who speaks both Japanese and English fluently, and who can also relate more so with the culture differences?
So there's a few parts of that. So one, wishy-washy, yes, they are. It's very hard to pin somebody down. That's why I felt like I had an advantage when I was there at the beginning, because I said, I'm going to need you to make a decision today, because you can take all the time you want, and you can join a month from now, but I won't be here and I'll probably never see you again. So I need you, if you really want to work with me, I need you to make a decision today. So I had a call to action that was kind of unfair. So for you, you might have to speak to them several times. I only had about 4 people while I was there that would admit to speaking English. Most people would not even admit it, because they want it to be perfect. They want it to be crisp. And they were all younger people. So a translator would be a very good idea. And if you could craft something with a translator, and just show somebody that's a translator the opportunity, and then just basically do exactly what I did and say, I've got all these relationships, and I would like to teach you the business, and we can build the entire business underneath your business, and get someone to partner with you, and someone that you can have a relationship with. You have the potential, being over there with relationships already, to build a big business. You're actually there. You're still there, and you actually have relationships, face-to-face relationships, which is an advantage that I did not have. But what you are lacking, I believe, is a translator that can actually sit there and go back and forth. They can ping pong back and forth. So if the person wants to ask a question, they can ask it how they want to ask it in Japanese, how they know for sure how they want to craft the question. And then your translator can, the translator can put it on with you. And you can always you can get my information. I'm actually connected online as well. And if you have a translator and you have someone you're doing the presentation with, you can always send me a message before you do any of that. And I would be more than happy to get on through line and do a call, a validation, whatever you would like. I could help you answer the questions and help you grow your business. I would love for somebody to come through all of this and have a successful business. And thank you very much for your service over there.
Awesome. Well, good. I'm glad we were able to get his question through. All right. Any other hands up out there? Let's see here. We got one more from Larry Venzel. Okay.
Hey, thanks for talking to us tonight. I appreciate it. I'm also in the contracting industry, although I'm in the mechanical heating, cooling, refrigeration business. I've had my own business 29 years, started me in a truck, and now we're up to like 13. And last year I had a kind of a moment down at the Power Trip where I realized I need to find some time away from my traditional business to work in it. And I worked pretty much all last year hiring, moving, just kind of trying to streamline it to make it happen. And it took a little longer, but I'm to a point within the last month where I'm literally spending a couple hours every day doing something with Ambit, which is really nice. So I feel like I have some projection out ahead of me. So I appreciate you going to Japan and doing what you did. It just takes a lot of guts, man, and the integrity, like Mark was saying, and And that's, I'm looking for that, like a little shot in the arm. And I think some of the things, I guess, that I struggle with, like, I believe in Abbott, everything about it, right? I think I still struggle with an invite. And so, here I'm wondering okay, so if you're driving down the road and you're calling somebody, what is it? What are you saying? Are you inviting them to a meeting? Or are you inviting them to a home show? You sending them to a video? What has been your best go-to? I mean, I've tried them all, and I'm trying to, I was trying to use a lot of everybody else's pitches and things, and I found out it had to be me and get comfortable with my way. And I literally haven't done that very long ago. So I'm in a good place now, but I'm still looking for, I don't know, like something, I don't know. I know there's a lot of different ways. I'm just kind of listening to all the ways,
So, I mean, I can appreciate, getting the 2 hours in. I mean, there's nothing like, I am a firm believer that speed over strategy wins every day of the week. Just do as much as you can do. But anyways, with the invite at this point, it's kind of hard for me to call somebody who does not know that I'm doing Ambit. I mean, it's basically the only thing that I post, and I don't post anything about joining my business or being a customer. I just take pictures out of all the places I've been and some other success. But an invite that I typically make to someone, if I said, "Hey, Mark, this is Chad," and they say, "Hey, how are you doing?" I say, "Great. I'm swamped here at work. I'm headed to another job site, but I wanted to call you and apologize that I've been in this business about 2.5 years from now, and I have not invited you to take a look and see what I'm doing. And I feel like I'm doing your family a disservice." And I said, "I don't care if you," and I tell them, "I don't care if you do this business or not, but I want you to spend 15 minutes watching something with me to make sure you understand what you're saying no to." And I feel like I've had more success telling somebody up front that it's not for them, that, I don't care. I could care less if they join my business or not. But for what it's done for my family, I just feel like I'm doing their family a disservice. And I apologize up front for not asking them to take a look up to this point. And, some people still don't take a look, and some people say yes, but I never send anybody a video if I'm within driving range of an hour and a half. And I know this is not what a lot of people teach, but I drive to people. I sit in people's living rooms. I sit in people's kitchens. I don't care. I'll go to Starbucks. But there's something to be said when I tell somebody, "Listen, you don't have to meet me halfway. Like, I know what I have. So, I have these 2-3 nights available that I can drive to your house, or I can drive to Starbucks and meet you. And I'm looking for 15 to 30 minutes of your time, and I'm willing to give you all mine. I'm willing to come the whole way. So which one of these time slots do you want?" And then I just wait, and I just wait for an answer. That's the best I got for people that already know, what it is that I'm doing. Before everybody knew that I did Ambit, like I would, if I'm going to talk to one of my boss's people, contacts, I would say, I've started a separate business, a side business from what I do here with Kip. And I know y'all been friends for a long time, and I know for sure it's not a business that you'd be interested in, but I really would like your opinion on what it is that I'm getting myself into, because I'm putting my reputation on the line, and I really respect your opinion. I know you respect, I know you really respect your reputation. So, whatever time slots you got available, I'm willing to come to your office and sit down so I can show it to you. And maybe you can give me a couple names of somebody that would be interested. And then sometimes after that's over, they go, "Well, why wouldn't you think I'd be interested in this? You don't think I'm smart enough to do this?" And so you'd be surprised, just by maybe stroking somebody's ego or taking the business away from somebody before you ever let them watch it, and just they don't think they're going to get super closed at the end of something, or just hammered or anything else. You'd be surprised at how well that actually works. And that's all I do. I would love to tell you that there's something special and creative and super crafted, but you're right. It has to be from you, and that's what works best for me.
That's awesome, man. Great. So let me see. Larry has a follow up. Go ahead, Larry.
Yeah, I just wanted to say thanks. And when you do sit down with them, you pull your laptop out, show them a 5-minute video. Like, what is that next point when you do meet with them? Do you do a little talk first, maybe like why you got in or what you're doing first, and then show a video and use an upline call?
Yeah, so basically what I do is exactly like you said. I follow the system to a T, but I'll sit down, I'll talk to them for a second. I'll have a Success from Home magazine sitting there. I never do one without a Success from Home magazine because they have the intent to leave it with them. And I just say, hey, listen, I appreciate your time. And what I'm going to show you, this is what it's done for my family. So I basically just tell what it's done for my family in 2.5 years, which is, my what I'm able to tell people at this point is probably a little bit more powerful than what you're able to tell them, but you can tell them why you started the business. I can tell them what it's done. So, up to this point, but tell them why you started the business and everything else and why you think it's useful to them. And I always tell them, look, I'm going to play you 2 videos. And I actually have the videos merged together on my laptop. So it's seamless. So you don't have to click from one to the next. So I just have the opportunity video, and as soon as it's over, the screen's only black for a half a second, and then it rolls in the getting paid. So there's nothing, it's seamless. There's no chance they're going to take the headphones out or anything else. It just goes all the way through. It's 12 minutes. They know it's 12 minutes. And then as soon as it's over, as they start the video, I'm texting somebody saying, I text multiple people saying the video's playing, who's available to do a call here in a few minutes. And 15 minutes because everybody knows how long the video is. And then sometimes I use that call as a welcome call. Sometimes I use it as a 3-way phone call. And sometimes people say, hey, I love it. I have no questions. I'm not interested in the least. And I tell them thank you for their time, but I know this isn't for everybody. But are you at least in the market to save money on your energy bill? And that's how you get a lot of energy customers. That's how you get customers by default without having to call around and get customers. But yeah, you just follow the system. And I don't do a PowerPoint presentation because people think that they're going to have to do that. I hit play every single time.
That's great. You know what? It's interesting about that is we've heard that 1,000 times. I mean, it's the same. Push play, do a 3-way call, and that's it. Qualify your customer. All right, hold on a second here. One more. Go ahead.
Just curious, this might be a simple answer. How did you merge the 2 videos?
I downloaded them. I downloaded them from the video has actually gone through. I think it's called Vimeo, whatever. My sponsor is really good on computers, and he figured out where the video was uploaded to, and we just downloaded it from YouTube onto both our desktops, and he put them in some video player and put them together and put them on a little flash drive and stuck it in the side of my computer, and I stuck it on my laptop. That's the best I got. I don't think it's simple. It's very complicated. It's probably very simple to someone who's a lot smarter than me. I can build a building or a house, but I can't tell you the full details. I just know that that's the process it went to.
So we'll bring our flash drives to Ambition. We'll get a copy of it, right?
Everybody can plug it in the side of my computer. I'll gladly download it.
I love it. Well, Chad, I'm not going to hold you up anymore. It's almost 11 o'clock here, but I do appreciate your time and actually going overtime. Once again, you've sacrificed for a team that you make no money on, but that's just the way Ambit goes. And if I can ever return the favor for you and your team, I'd love to come on to one of your team trainings or calls and do the same. But I do appreciate you coming on tonight. And is there any last words you want to kind of say to our team as far as just the charge for them to go out and get it done?
Yeah, this is the last thing I always tell everybody is I didn't know anything when I came into this business. I had to have this business work. I was broke. So I had an advantage that a lot of people don't have. A lot of people aren't broke. So a lot of people don't have to make this thing work. But I did. So I had an advantage. So what I want to tell everybody is just have patience. Like everybody wants things to happen overnight. Things typically don't happen overnight. People with these cell phones, with the internet, with everything else. It's like I got to have it now, or it's not worth my time or anything else when people have been at jobs like I have for 22 years. So be patient. And then the last thing is, it's just a call to action. Stop deliberating, stop pondering, stop debating, and just go do. You learn as you go. You get paid to learn. Just go out there and invite. The only way you get better at invite is just to keep inviting. Just do over and over and over again. Just stop pondering and just go do. That's it.
Awesome, guys. So you heard it right there. Just get out there and get it done. I appreciate everybody coming on. This video will eventually be up on YouTube. Usually takes me a month to get them on there, but but it'll get up there sooner or later. So I appreciate you being on here tonight and giving us your time. So that's all I got. If